What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel for the cerebral NFL fan, where they come to get about 10 minutes of daily content. Okay, guys. So, yesterday, I was really kind of kicking the can around, turning over everything. I was reading articles. I was watching, content creators. I was reading comments and things. And I was trying to come up with, okay, what do I want to talk about today? And I did start to notice there's a weird dominant narrative out there about Jim Schwartz. And that dominant narrative is no matter who we would have gotten, whether it had been, Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Peterson or Chris Harris Jr., it wouldn't matter because Jim Schwartz wouldn't know how to use them in this defense. I kind of disagree, guys. I don't agree with that dominant narrative. And that's today's topic. I want to talk about this topic that Jim Schwartz doesn't know how to utilize corners. Yeah, it's kind of the chicken or the egg situation we have here, guys, and we're going to get into that today.
2nd and 7. Shoulder shake, look out.
Okay, guys. So back when I played football, I'm just going to date how long ago. Shout out to any of y'all whose football team still runs these type of formations and still uses this particular position. I ran something that was called a flanker back. Okay, it's not a fullback, a flanker back. Flanker back would be similar to like an H back in today's football. Okay, outside of flanker back, they used to use me as a split end, and even for some comic relief, guys, because I had a lot of speed. I was a very quick kid. They even tried to utilize me a couple times as a running back, which was it was hysterically funny because I sucked at running back, guys. I was really good at being a flanker back. I was really good at being a split end. I sucked at running back, guys. It doesn't matter if you have speed, running back position. That's not the most important factor. You have to be patient, you have to have courage, and you have to be able to read what the defense is doing, hit the hole at the right time. It's about timing. I didn't have that. I was horrible at that. But on the defensive side of the ball, when I did play defense, I have to give credit to some of the coaches I had because they were ahead of their time in ways because they were utilizing a fearless little guy who was not scared for contact and did a great job of reading the quarterback's eyes and reacting to plays. And that's largely what Malcolm Jenkins is. He's not a little guy, but he's a read and react type football player. Okay, these are generally speaking when we say guys are better at zone coverage than they are man coverage because they're better at reading the quarterback's eyes and making a play on the ball. And then to me, for some of you guys that are out there talking about, oh, they're in panic mode now. Clearly, Malcolm Jenkins was the source. He was Josina Anderson's source. Blah blah blah. Stop this shit, guys. Stop it. We don't know if any of this is true, and it seems very unlikely that Malcolm Jenkins is the source. And for some of y'all calling for his head, let me tell you something. You get rid of Malcolm Jenkins but having a fucking plan B. You want to talk about the misery we're going to experience as fans? It's going to get really bad on the defensive side of the football, guys. I'm going to show you that today, just how bad it can get. And by the way, for some of y'all out there, and I know there's YouTubers out there saying this, guys. There's content creators out there talking about, that clearly Alshon Jeffrey was the source. Stop this shit. You're utilizing Howard Eskin, who is not some impartial fucking source. If you go through Howard Eskin's actual interview, when he reported, he never once gave you some kind of substantiated source. All he did was there was no real reason for his inferences. He didn't tell you I'm hearing from this person or that person. This is why. All it was subjective bullshit. It was just subjective bullshit. There was no actual reasoning behind him saying Alshon Jeffrey other than the fact that he has a relationship with Josina Anderson. Guys, that's not enough for me. That's bullshit. As a fan base, we've got to stop. This shit's not even important. It doesn't even matter. We're acting as if the Philadelphia media is our friend, and it's not. The media is not there to be friends of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's there to get views. Stirring up false reports, they don't give a shit about the accuracy of what they're reporting. They need the viewership. Stop believing in this shit, guys. Stop. There's no reason, if you look at the way Josina Anderson worded everything, to believe when it comes to the criticism of Carson Wentz, this didn't come from the front office employee or a former player. I know some of you are going to say, well, she didn't say former player. Well, no shit, because if you put the words former and player, we would all probably know damn right well who it was given the timing of it. So come on, stop this shit. Stop it. Here's the other thing, guys. I want to talk about the way that I learned football and basically my academic training. For y'all that don't know, currently I have my own business, guys. I operate and I run my own business, and then I substitute teach. But before that, I actually was a full-time social studies teacher. I was an instructor. So academically, I was trained as a historian. And for some of y'all that don't know what historians are, a lot of people have this idea that historians just learn the dominant narrative of the United States or whatever field of social studies or history they're studying, and then they basically retell that story to other people. That's what really bad social studies teachers, instructors, professors, and historians do. Good ones do something a little different. They deconstruct the dominant narrative. So they learn the dominant narrative and then they deconstruct that dominant narrative to then basically start to understand why it exists. Then you can make inferences to whether or not things are correct about it. But that's what a historian does. They deconstruct information to understand why the dominant narrative got out there, how it got out there, its origins. Okay? Let's talk about a dominant narrative, guys. Let's transition into specifics about the Eagles football game here. The dominant narrative is what about Jim Schwartz in corners? I'm hearing a lot of content creators out there saying it wouldn't matter who we went and got, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Peterson, Jim Schwartz wouldn't know how to use them. I'm calling bullshit on that. I'm calling bullshit because these are people who don't really understand the basic concepts of the defense and why we have to have players who can read and react. If you want to know why some players are given 10-yard cushions, if you want to know why some players look like they're always 3 yards off a receiver, it's because they can't read the quarterback and react correctly. Okay? They don't have the football IQ, Sidney Jones, to do that. And that's the bigger problem. We need smarter football players who can learn our defense, learn the offensive scheme, and understand their responsibility and read and react correctly the way Malcolm Jenkins does. That's what I want to talk about today, guys. I want to talk about the defense. I really want to dive down into this narrative, okay? And there's going to be a lot mixed in. It's not just going to be this narrative. It's going to be the defense in general.
Invert half, basically. Darby's the deep defender, and then...
Okay? Cover 3, guys. All he's talking about there is cover 3, okay? You got a single high safety, and you got your 2 outside corners that are playing the numbers, okay? Anything back, they got to go back with it, right? You got 4 underneath defenders. Malcolm Jenkins is talking about how important a guy is who can read and react, okay? Number 1, what he's talking about is his zone responsibility, all right? You got 2 guys there. So you got on the, I guess what we would call the top side of the screen, it could be the bottom side, depending on, your inference to this. That is Malcolm Jenkins. He's going to cover the first flat there. He's got that flat responsibility. The second flat responsibility is on the top end to me, and that would be Kamu Grugier-Hill's responsibility, okay? Watch and just see the importance of a player like Malcolm Jenkins and why we need better corners.
I'm technically the flat defender. I got to hold off the 7, just like you would tell a squat corner.
Malcolm Jenkins has to get under that route, guys. So first objective is to see, is this receiver going to run into me to block? If he runs into the block, what does that tell Malcolm Jenkins? It's a running play. That's why people like to be like Jim Schwartz likes to be in a cover 3. It's 8 people in the box, okay? So he's looking for that. Does he make contact with me? Because then that probably tells me we're dealing with a running play. Second thing is Malcolm Jenkins must get under that route and force a check down, okay? If he doesn't get underneath that route, it's all over. You guys get it? He's got to get under the route, force the check down. Meaning you've got to be able to read the scheme that they're playing. You got to be able to read what personnel package they're in. You have to be able to know the route trees. You got to be able to read the quarterback's eyes to get him to check the ball down. Can't just have anyone doing this type of responsibility, guys.
Yep. And then make them check this down, and then you just got to run and get him down, try to mitigate the amount of yards he gets.
Rudolph coming across the formation.
For some people who are calling for Malcolm Jenkins' head, you better know what you're asking for. You're asking for a world of hurt. And this is my argument here, guys. For those people who keep saying that, look, the Eagles wouldn't matter because of Jim. No, they don't understand what they're talking about. I'm sorry. There are some people out there who I think are super Eagle fans. I think they're super entertaining. But I don't think they understand the X's and O's of football as much as they like to think they do. And the bottom line is this. Like, we need football players who can, if we're in a cover 3, they've got to understand zone concept. Okay? They got to be able to understand how to play the zone concept. And if they can't play zone, they're in a lot of trouble. And that's where I think a player like Sidney Jones is in a world of trouble. He's a very athletic guy. I mean, there was a video before where I showed you guys on that Davante Adams catch, how fast he outran Davante Adams to go catch him. Dude hit like 22 miles per hour. Like, Sidney Jones, he doesn't lack athleticism. His knee, what happened to his knee is not, that's not what's causing like his lack of athleticism in the game. It's a whole different situation going on with Sidney Jones. In my opinion, Sidney Jones is just not very good at being able to identify personnel packages, being able to identify the route tree, and being able to understand where his responsibility is with end zone defenses. He gets beat. He's thinking too much and not playing. That's a problem. That makes a fast guy become slow. That's the problem. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think Sidney Jones, we kind of have to be careful, Sidney Jones, because like people keep saying there's no value for him. I don't know about that. I think if you put Sidney Jones in a scheme where he just has to cover one guy and take him away, his athleticism and his speed is probably better suited for that type of system, a man coverage system. Okay. And that could be a criticism where I think could be a legitimate criticism of Jim Schwartz, which is if you don't have those guys, especially beginning of the year, early in the year when like something wasn't right, you like Rodney Darby, his knee wasn't right. Like he's lacking the athleticism that he normally has because Ronald Darby, to my opinion, he does have the ability to read. He's his own guy. He can read and react to it. But Sidney Jones isn't that type of guy. And that's the problem. I can understand people's argument from that perspective to say, Steve, then they should be switching more to a man concept on Sidney Jones' side and simplifying it. That's true, but then you have to alter more than just one piece of your defense to do that. And that's a big problem to me. When you get to Rasul Douglas, guys, I think Rasul Douglas definitely got caught by receivers who are great. Like I know the one play he wants to keep showing is how Rasul Douglas got made to look like a fool by Amari Cooper. Guys, don't mistake this about Amari Cooper. I don't like the guy. The guy's a pretty damn good route runner. He's really good at selling things. He sold a slant on Rasul Douglas, and Rasul Douglas bought that slant, and then he just hit him with a fade. He just got open on the fade. Burn his ass. Like, look, it happens, man. You're not going to be perfect on every one of them. And I think Rasul Douglas has certainly showed his ability to read and react to plays a lot better than like Sidney Jones and some of the other corners that we've been throwing out there this year. So, you know what I'm saying? Like things in perspective. Can we upgrade over Rasul Douglas? Come on, dude. Of course we can. And that's my argument is we need a guy who can play this concept. Okay? A guy who can play this cover 3 zone concept, who can read and react. That's what we're missing. Now I want to get into some of the other topics and stuff like that. I'm going to show you a clip of that getting burnt shit, but I want to talk about what else is going on with this Eagles defense because it's more than just a secondary.
Barnett is back in the game. A double shoulder shake and then downfield, and it's caught by Amari.
All right, guys, if you were trying to look at that film segment I just gave you to where if you're trying to see where Rasul Douglas, he jumped ball into the slant. If you go again, look at the top side of the screen. It's the top side to me, where Amari Cooper's lined up with Rasul Douglas. You'll see just before the 30-yard line, just before the camera rolls, before it goes off camera, guys, you'll see Amari Cooper starts to take it inside to make it look like a slant, and he hooks it right back out to a fade. The reason being is Rasul Douglas is supposed to have outside containment on that. So if you can get him to bite in, now the fade's open. Now you got to get the safety all the way over the top. Rasul Douglas has got to keep outside containment on that, guys. You got to stay on that. You know, if you're on the outside, then basically you got to be on that left hip, basically, not the right hip. You don't want to be on the inside. You want to be on the outside. If you get caught there, you're screwed. That's what ended up happening. I mean, it's a small piece, like guys. I mean, it's going to happen from time to time. Nobody's perfect. Even Jalen Ramsey fucks up like that sometimes too, guys. So I'm not over biting on that because Rasul Douglas has been he hasn't been our problem for the most part. Most of the plays that we've seen that Rasul Douglas has been burnt, it really wasn't even Rasul Douglas. It was really the safeties fucking up more than anything. Rasul Douglas had the exact coverage he was supposed to be in. He was exactly, he had outside leverage. He stayed on the outside leverage. And because the safeties were biting on people crossing in front of their face, what ended up happening was they were just throwing it to the inside. They were throwing it inside of Rasul Douglas. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing but wide open field there. So just kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like just full perspective on this stuff, guys. I almost kind of don't blame Rasul for biting on that because he's been the subject of it. He's been the subject and he's been the guy who's getting the most attention to the point where he's probably like, fuck it, I'm going to have to play for the safeties, and he overbid on something because they were beating him on the post. To be real, I mean, I can't blame him on that one. Still, he was wrong. You got to stick to where your assignment is, and just hope football minds like myself and others can basically come out to the audience and justify what's going on. But he didn't, he over pursued it. All right, other shit that's going on with this Eagles defense, guys. I think the biggest problem we have right now isn't in the secondary; it's on the defensive line. Just stop and think for a second, guys. We lost Malik Jackson week 1. We lost Timmy Jernigan week 2. And now we lost Hassan Ridgeway in week 7, right? Yeah, week 7. Like, we went through 3 really good defensive tackles. Hassan Ridgeway was a pleasant surprise. That was a hell of a trade. That was how he had his best, was Hassan Ridgeway. Guys, I don't know what the hell's going on here, and I wouldn't be shocked. I've been saying it. I think the biggest need for the Eagles is a wide receiver who can stretch the field if we cannot get DeSean Jackson back. With that said, the next biggest issue, or I'd say issue 1B, is defensive line, whether it's a tackle or pass rush. Pass rusher. We need them. We are in serious trouble because the concept of this scheme has got to get pressure home. Because, zone, ideally in a zone defense, what you want to happen is you want the quarterback to be rushed. Then those corners can read what's going on and they can make plays on the ball. If you're just giving a guy all day to throw the ball and you're in zone coverage, like, it ain't going to be good, guys, unless you confuse them with the zone. Then you have to start getting creative with the way that you're rolling your zones, giving them looks that they think you're in one base package, but you're really in another, secondary coverage scheme. Like, then you have to start doing shit like that. And I don't think I don't think is the strength of Jim Schwartz. Mixing up those kind of coverage schemes, I don't think that's not his strength in my opinion. This problem though, I almost think that the earlier videos I made, I don't know if some of these guys are available. I'm just speculating, guys. But if you can get a guy like Calais Campbell away from Jacksonville, I would go get a Calais Campbell, guys. If you can get a Geno Atkins, I would go get him. If you can get any veteran defensive tackle that maybe is only on the books for a year or two, I think that's your move because I think the long-term future of defensive tackle is good. I think if you can lock up Hassan Ridgeway for another 3 to 5 years, that's a good third defensive tackle, guys. I think Malik Jackson is your guy besides Fletcher Cox in the long run. He had a freak injury, guys. He's not a guy that's normally injured. Like, that shit was probably the hardest injury we outside of DeSean Jackson that we suffered. Timmy Jernigan's always kind of had a history of being a very talented player, but very injury prone. I do think we will get Timmy Jernigan back this year. So if we can get Hassan Ridgeway back, Timmy Jernigan back, and we can go get a veteran, I think the defensive tackle position, that area will be fine. It's just that we probably do need a veteran presence right now because we're really thin. I mean, we got guys that we're pulling off of, practice squad. But there's a reason why these guys are on practice squad. They might have future projection, but they're not ready right now. That's a problem in my opinion. And I would not just go get any veteran guy. I think you need to go get a veteran guy who really is good. But you want a guy that's probably only on a year or two contract because we don't need him long term. We don't need that body long term. And that person, depending on how talented they are. Now, if it's a Calais Campbell, he's not going to disappear when Timmy Jernigan and Hassan Ridgeway come back. He's going to be your next guy beside Fletcher Cox. But there are other guys that are, like Geno Atkins and Calais Campbell, clearly. Those guys aren't going to disappear. But there are other veterans you can get who are good they're good run defenders. They can get penetration up through, the 1 and 2 gaps. And they would be suitable until a Tim Jernigan and Hassan Ridgeway come back. We got to look at things like that too, because I do think that the defensive line could be another thing. We definitely could use a defensive end. I think Derek Barnett is coming around. He's been a little off this season, but Derek Barnett, that play I showed you guys, the very first clip I rolled, to start this after I did my intro, that shows you how good Derek Barnett can be. The way he contorted his body to get around, to get that low and get around the tackle, that was a damn good left tackle he beat like that. We need more consistency, and that's where I think we need a third pass rusher. I like Vinny Curry, and I love the fact that Vinny Curry can play inside and outside, but we really do need a guy that a Carlos Dunlap doesn't even be as significant as Carlos Dunlap, but we need a third guy that can come in and rush the passer. Say what you want to, but when we got guys like Chris Long and we got guys like Michael Bennett, those guys were really good at rushing the passer. They were veteran guys, they were older guys, but if you really just put them in that third defensive end role, they were very good at it. We need that. We need that particular type of player again. Whether it's a young guy or it's an older veteran, we need it. We're really lacking that. And I don't think Jim Schwartz defense can really survive unless it has that defensive line play. It's not suited. It's not built to suffer, a lack of pass rush. That's the one thing that cannot happen with Jim Schwartz defense. Now, the last topic I'm going to talk about, guys, is this idea of Jim Schwartz not utilizing players, not being a good defensive coordinator. I'm not too sure I buy into that. And here's why. It's the chicken or the egg. Is it Jim Schwartz or is it the front office? Because to me, it damn sure seems certain that the front office is pretty content with giving Jim Schwartz a handful of kind of players and letting him roll out there. I mean, they take care of him on the defensive line. Sorry, guys. They take care of him on the defensive line. But, like, linebacker, the back seven, is there anyone in the league working with lesser talent? To be honest. I mean, maybe he doesn't have the worst talent, but it's certainly bottom third talent on the back seven. That's my point is I don't know that I can really fully put this on Jim Schwartz because I think the front office has a lot of faith in this guy, and they don't give him a lot to work with. I mean, they really don't. And that's what, to me, is kind of the chicken or the egg situation there. If they gave him more talent, you know what I'm saying? Like, what would happen? There's another argument that keeps getting flown out there. I'm going to tie off, guys, just to kind of close out this talk. This is a very long segment here. This idea that we won the Super Bowl with these guys, so these cornerbacks are good as they are. We might have to roll with that just because there's so many holes, to be quite honest. But with that said, I'm going to call bullshit a little bit on that narrative. Did we win the Super Bowl with those guys, or did we win the Super Bowl in spite of those guys? Tom Brady did throw for 500 fucking yards. Like, to me, I think we won in spite of that. Now, down the stretch, I will say the defense played great. You know, that Minnesota game, right? Atlanta game, like down the stretch, the defense really held it together for the Eagles until the Super Bowl. Then they got exposed. But I don't know, guys. All right, y'all. I'm done. That's my little rant for today, y'all. Steven Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel. Y'all can just do me a favor, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think, guys. I know there's some people out here who just hate Jim Schwartz. Tell me what you think, guys. What's your opinion here, guys? Hopefully this gave you guys a little insight to like this whole argument about, you know, the corner shit. Like that's just bogus bullshit. But we'll see. We'll see what you guys think. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here. You know what time it is. EAGLES. Guys, we need that victory in Buffalo. Let's not be playing around this week.